So my name is Meredith. I'm really excited to welcome you all to our webinar on cultivating mindfulness for mental wellness. I'm delighted to have you join us today to explore the transformative power of mindfulness for promoting mental health and well-being. So we'll just go over today's webinar and what you can expect. So today we'll delve into what mindfulness actually is, its benefits, as well as practical techniques for incorporating mindfulness into your daily life. We're going to discuss some strategies for overcoming common challenges that come up in mindfulness practices. And we're also going to have a couple opportunities to practice some different mindfulness techniques within our webinar. And then at the very end, we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. Also know that throughout this webinar, I'm going to be asking you some questions. I would love it if you could engage in the chat and we can get some reflections going. But if you don't feel comfortable typing into the chat, you can also use those questions as your own reflection time, just to kind of jot down any insights or reflections that you have on your experience in this webinar today. So a little bit about me. My name is Meredith Dirksen, and I work on the mental health team as a psychotherapist here at the Niagara North Family Health Team. I do individual psychotherapy with patients as well as the assessments for the psychiatrist, Dr. Worsey. I have a background in community mental health as well as addictions, and I'm also a registered yoga teacher. I'm trained in trauma-sensitive yoga, and I really love to incorporate this work of mindfulness and meditation and the elements of yoga in my work with patients. Of course, if they're interested in that, I love to get into that in our sessions. And I myself have a, in quotes, somewhat consistent practice of mindfulness. So I say somewhat because I am human. And as we're going to discuss in this webinar today, there are some challenges and roadblocks that come up with maintaining consistency when it comes to a mindfulness practice. And you'll also notice that I call it a practice. So I say practice because that's exactly what it is. So when we're looking at these mindfulness techniques, no one is a master. We're all just practicing. So it's a practice that you have to keep coming back to. And we're all just practicing being more mindful and being more aware of our thoughts and our emotions and our surroundings. So what exactly is mindfulness? Mindfulness is a practice of being present and fully engaged in the moment without judgment. So it involves paying attention to our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, and the surrounding environment with some openness and curiosity. So I'd love it if you could pop into the chat here and maybe share, what does mindfulness mean to you? Or maybe a word that comes to your mind when you think of mindfulness or meditation. For me personally, I think of the word calm or relaxation, peace, and maybe also struggle, right? Because I shared a little earlier that I struggle to maintain consistency with my mindfulness practice. And another word that comes to mind is this idea of self-care. Okay, so we're going to look at the roots of mindfulness. So the roots of mindfulness can be traced back to ancient traditions, particularly Buddhism and Hinduism. However, in recent decades, mindfulness has gained widespread recognition in Western psychology and medicine for its therapeutic benefits. So we're finding more and more research in the mental health field about the benefits of mindfulness. And And it's become somewhat of a buzzword, right? Especially over the past decade or so, just more and more people talking about mindfulness and trying to integrate it into their daily lives. So let's look at what the research says about mindfulness for mental health specifically. So research has shown that mindfulness can have profound effects on mental health. By cultivating mindfulness, individuals can develop greater resilience to stress, improved emotional regulation, enhanced focus and attention, and increased self-awareness and self-compassion. We are going to delve into the benefits in a little bit, but I want to focus first on this semi-recent study that was conducted in 2022. And it's the first of its kind where it compared two groups. And it found that mindfulness meditation worked as effectively as the drug Cipralex in treating anxiety. So the study included participants attending a mindfulness program for 2.5 hours weekly, along with a 45-minute daily practice at home. So that was one group. And then the other group just took Cipralex daily. So the study found that both groups actually experienced about a 30% reduction in anxiety symptoms over 6 months. So this is pretty groundbreaking, the first kind of study of its kind. And mindfulness proved effective and safe for treating anxiety with fewer side effects than the pharmaceutical option. So this study and these results could lead to possible insurance coverage for meditation programs in the future. I know we're kind of far off from that being a reality, but it is very promising, right, to have that kind of data. So I included the name of the study if you would like to look at that a bit further. All right. So we're going to look at a YouTube video here titled Mindfulness is a Superpower.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
All All right. So that was a video by Dan Harris. He has a podcast called 10% Happier. He was narrating that cartoon. I love that one just because mindfulness is a superpower, right? We're able to access it, but as we're going to explore in this webinar, there can be kind of roadblocks that can come up that can make it a lot easier to react, right? Just like he said, he's angry, right? And it can be a lot easier, or the path of least resistance, for us to engage in that anger or engage in that frustration. And so the practice of mindfulness is becoming aware of that frustration and choosing to respond instead of reacting. Okay. Actually, I just want to check with Alicia. Should we be telling folks to just stick with the Q&A as a way of connecting with us?
The chat should be working.
Okay. Okay, oh, yes, perfect. All right, so we'll stick with the chat. So I'm going to be asking you some reflection questions as we move forward with the presentation. So let's look at the benefits of practicing mindfulness. So first is stress reduction and emotion regulation, which was highlighted in that video that we just all viewed. So one of the primary benefits of mindfulness is its ability to reduce and manage stress. So by practicing mindfulness, individuals can learn to respond to stressors with greater calmness and clarity rather than reacting impulsively. Mindfulness helps us become more aware of our emotions and allows us to observe those emotions without getting caught up in the emotion or in the story that surrounds the emotion. So this enables us to respond to challenging emotions in a more skillful and adaptive manner. The next benefit is increased focus and attention. So through mindfulness practices such as meditation or mindful breathing, we can essentially train our minds to become more focused and attentive, which can then improve our concentration and our productivity in various aspects of our lives. And then finally, mindfulness can help us to increase our self-awareness as well as our self-compassion. So it encourages us to cultivate a non-judgmental awareness of ourselves, so including our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. This self-awareness fosters greater self-compassion or self-love and self-acceptance, which can then lead to overall improved well-being. So you may be wondering at this point, especially if you're newer to the practice, how do you actually practice mindfulness? Like, what are you supposed to do? So I've broken it up into 3 main pillars and 3 main things to remember when practicing mindfulness. So these are attention. So first, just becoming attentive or aware of what's going on. Curiosity, so approaching things with curiosity, and then finally acceptance. So by honing our attention, our curiosity, and our acceptance of thoughts and feelings moment to moment, we're able to be mindful. So let's delve into these a bit further. Attention means that we are aware of things in and around us. So this includes an attention to internal thoughts or feelings and bodily sensations, as well as things happening in our outer world or in our environment, like sounds. So why is attention important? We spend a lot of time thinking about the past or focusing on the future. And I find that in my work with patients, that's a lot of what we're exploring, right? And a lot of things that impact their emotions and their mental health are things in the past or worrying about the future. So what can happen then is that we can forget that we're here right now, right? Like right now is what's important. Attention can help us notice all of the things we have in the present moment and help us better understand how we're operating moment to moment in our lives. Now, the caveat with this is that not everything that we notice will be joyful, right? If we start practicing attention, we may start to notice that we're tired or that we're in pain or that there's some emotions that we've been kind of stifling. So we're bringing more awareness to these painful experiences. And so even if they are quote unquote negative or painful, these observations are still very useful for us to become more in tune and aware of what's going on within us. Next is curiosity. So curiosity means exploring without judgment. So we look at our thoughts, feelings, or sensations from the perspective of an explorer, examining different perspectives so we can better understand what's going on. Curiosity helps us examine situations more objectively. And why is curiosity so important? It means that we're relating to things a bit differently than usual. So as human beings, our tendency is, or our habit is kind of to automatically judge thoughts, sensations, experiences, or even other people around us. And what happens when we explore with judgment is that it's easy for one critical thought to cascade and cause distress. So an example of this is if you have a small disagreement with a friend, that can lead to unrealistic fears about the future of the relationship, right? When we focus on judging that simple incident. By practicing mindfulness, we may not stop the judgments, right? Our mind might kind of automatically go to that judging place, but it can help us to notice the thoughts or notice that tendency to judge so that we're not just operating kind of automatically and on autopilot. And then finally, acceptance. So acceptance means embracing the present moment as it is, both the good and the bad, rather than resisting it or doing something quickly to change it. So why is acceptance so important? Sometimes trying to control or change something isn't possible, or it's not the best approach. So if we're feeling a lot of anxiety, for example, it's easy to get caught up in those uncomfortable feelings, and it can actually cause them to get much larger and be more unmanageable and uncomfortable. So then we might start to do a lot of things to try and stop the sensations or feel angry at ourselves for not being in control of the anxiety. And then in this case, it just kind of unravels and it can become more difficult to manage that anxiety. So acceptance in this case might mean simply acknowledging that we feel anxious, right? So just saying, oh, I feel anxious right now. That's interesting, right? So just accepting it and not attaching that story, not trying to push it down, not trying to change it. When we can accept it or when we acknowledge it without judgment, we can feel those anxious feelings. So we can still feel the feeling, but we let the feelings be, knowing that they will eventually pass. When I'm working with patients, sometimes I describe anxiety as like, and maybe others have heard this too, it's a common metaphor of riding the wave of anxiety, right? So just like a wave kind of comes up, it eventually does crash down, right? So with anxiety, if we can accept those feelings and just acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now, it's going to pass, we will eventually kind of get through it. So attention, curiosity, and acceptance can have a huge impact on the way we feel and the way we live our lives. You might also notice that while they are kind of simple concepts on their own, they are really not necessarily easy to do, especially moment to moment. All right. So we're going to get into a practical example and a practical exercise now. So we're going to be exploring a simple mindfulness exercise called mindful breathing. So as I guide you through this, I'm going to remind you to consistently check in with your breath. So when I say check in with your breath, what I'm really asking you to do is just notice it. Recognize the breath, maybe even thank it, right? The breath literally keeps us going moment to moment, every minute, every second. And often during our busy days, we tend to neglect our breath or we check out and we're not even connected to this life force energy within us. But it is so important. Another important thing before we get into the practice is when I reference breathe in and breathe out, I'm always meaning to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. So keeping the mouth closed if you're able. So you're not going to breathe in through the nose and then out through the mouth. And you're not going to breathe in through the mouth and out through the mouth. We want to try to stick to in through the nose and out through the nose. The exhale through the nose is especially important because it slows down your heart rate and it calms and grounds the nervous system. And so while we're going through this simple mindful breathing exercise, I really want you to keep the three main points of mindfulness in your mind, right? So in the previous slide, we talked about awareness, curiosity, and acceptance. All right. So wherever you are, just coming to a comfortable seated position. You can sit up, maybe nice and tall, bringing your feet to the ground. And then if that feels safe and comfortable for you, you can close your eyes here. And if you don't want to close your eyes, that's totally fine. Maybe just bringing your gaze down towards the ground, just to kind of avert your eyes and contain your energy. And as we sit here, we're just going to bring our awareness to the breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. You may notice automatically you're holding a bit of tension in your body. So I just invite you to relax your shoulders and just allow yourself to sink into this present moment. You may already notice that your mind is wandering. That is totally normal. And it may be helpful to bring your awareness to a focal point. So this focal point can either be the tip of the nose, where you notice the air going in and out, or if that doesn't resonate for you, you can choose to bring your focal point to your belly. So if you're noticing at the tip of your nose, you may pay attention to the cold air as it comes in through the nose and the warm air leaving the nostrils. Inhale, cool air going in. And exhale, warm air going out. Just simply noticing the breath as it enters and then leaves the body. If your focal point is on the belly, you may want to place one hand on the belly just to create that mind-body connection. And just notice your belly rising and falling with each breath. Filling the lungs and the belly with each inhale. And as you exhale, belly softens. Noticing the sensations of each inhale and exhale without trying to change anything. So just noticing the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Not trying to change or alter your breathing pattern. We're just noticing. Practicing awareness, curiosity, and acceptance. We'll take a few more breaths right here. And when you're ready, you can flutter your eyes open, taking in the space around you, and arriving back into your body and into this webinar. All right, so I would love it if you could pop into the chat any insights or short reflections from this simple breath awareness exercise. Maybe even a word that describes how you're feeling. More centered. Love that. Yeah. Yeah, mindfulness has the ability to really have us feel connected to our bodies, and not feel so pulled, right, by other energies, so that we're centered. We have relaxed in all capitals, hard to stay focused. Yes, for sure. Hard to stop the mind wandering. Yes. Okay, relaxed, calm. Yeah, and we're going to talk about those common pitfalls or the struggles with mindfulness. Like I shared and kind of disclosed in the very beginning, I struggle with mindfulness. I've been practicing for over 10 years now, and I still have moments, definitely, probably more often than not, I have moments where I'm kind of, my mind attaches to that thought, right? And the to-do list is going and the stories go, right? And so I think a big thing that we'll talk about today as well is how it's really important to stay consistent with it, because it's essentially like a muscle that we need to kind of work and keep practicing. So thank you everyone for sharing. We'll move on. So we're going to do another practical exercise. This one is kind of taking the next step. So we're going to continue with the breath awareness. So we're going to maintain that awareness of breath, but we're going to be bringing in a body scan. So the body scan involves systematically bringing awareness to different parts of the body, and we'll be starting at your toes and gradually scanning upwards throughout the body, noticing any sensations or areas of tension. This practice can help promote relaxation and body awareness, as well as strengthening that connection between mind and body. So before we begin, I'm just kind of going to give you an outline of what to expect. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slow scan or walkthrough of our whole bodies. And so why we do this is that oftentimes we do not check in with our bodies, right? We kind of go through the motions of the day, and we can be holding so much stress and so much tension and fatigue in certain areas of our body without even knowing it. So this exercise is a practice for release. So at times I'll ask you to draw attention to specific parts of your body, and maybe to picture that part of your body and kind of promote that relaxation. So please know that it is normal to kind of feel like this is difficult, especially if you don't have a consistent mind-body practice. And so I just want to encourage you to kind of keep connecting to the breath, keep listening to my cues, and keep trying to come back to what I'm cueing you to do. Also know that it's not supposed to look like anything. this body scan is a feeling within yourself. And the whole practice is just kind of strengthening that awareness of mind-body connection. So for this, we're going to be sitting, but you don't have to feel like you need to be sitting in a certain way. You don't have to be still the entire time either. The point of this exercise is to tune into your body and give it what it needs in the moment. So for you, what it needs in the moment might be to lay down, right? Or might need to kind of shake it out or bring some energy into your body, right? So just really, the whole point is we're bringing awareness to what we need in the moment, okay? So what we're going to do is move through that breathing awareness exercise or the body scan exercise. Remember that thoughts are going to pop into your head. Okay. So the point of this is not to empty the mind, right? And the point of it is not to ignore the thoughts either, right? So if we can go back to those three main pillars, the attention, curiosity, and acceptance, right? So we want to check in with ourselves and the thought when it emerges, right? We need to be aware of it, but we're not attaching a story. We're not letting it run the show, right? So when the thought emerges, we might see the thought, we might notice the thought, we might even greet the thought, but that just stops there, okay? The point is to decide, and you get to make this choice on what investment and what engagement you will give that thought, right? So just reminding yourself, it's only a thought, okay? It's going to be hard, right? Thoughts are going to come up, but I want you to know it's perfectly normal. And the practice is noticing the thought and not engaging with it, okay? So let's begin. We're going to begin in a comfortable seated position, feeling your feet flat on the ground. And again, if you feel comfortable, you can close the eyes. If that doesn't feel safe or comfortable for you, keeping the eyes open, but just having a calm gaze, maybe towards the ground. And let's sit up nice and straight, just drawing the shoulders back and down just for the beginning of this practice. So you might even notice some lengthening through the hips and the ribs here as we sit up nice and tall. And this seated pose here is just to start. As we move through this body scan, you're likely going to start to melt and sink into your seat. And that's totally fine. How your body looks in this is not important, but we're kind of just starting with that nice straight back and a nice tall seat to begin. Okay, so let's begin with our feet. Bringing your awareness to the toes and the soles of the feet. Our feet keep us grounded and connected to the earth. They carry us, they uplift us, and they help us walk through this world. Bringing your awareness to your toes, you might scrunch your toes in your shoes or in your socks or in your bare feet, scrunching the toes, and then relax them. And repeating after me, I'm relaxing my toes, my heels and ankles. I'm relaxing toes, heels, and ankles. Toes, heels, ankles, completely relaxed. Bringing your awareness up through the calves, the knees, and the thighs. Noticing any tension you might be holding in these areas of your body and your legs. My calves, knees, and thighs. Relax. Remembering your breath. How is it feeling? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Just notice the breath. Bringing your awareness up through the hips and the glutes. You might flex your glutes and then release. Relaxing glutes, hips, lower back. Relaxing glutes, hips, lower back. Completely relaxed. Bringing your awareness up through the belly, the chest, ribs, and upper back. Sending your breath deep into the belly. Noticing any tension you may be holding in this area. My stomach, ribs, upper back, completely relaxed. Let's move to the arms. We are always on our devices. Our hands are so busy and our arms do so much work. Just noticing how the arms feel, how your hands feel, the fingers and thumbs. Cultivating this awareness of how the arms, hands, fingers are feeling. And promoting relaxation of your arms. Completely relaxed. Remembering your breath. How is it feeling? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Just bringing the awareness to the breath. Everything is fine, just noticing. Bringing awareness to your shoulders. You can bring your shoulders up to your ears and then let them go. Do that one more time, lifting the shoulders up towards your ears and let them go. Relaxing shoulders, back of the neck, upper back, relaxed. And from here, it might feel nice to move your neck side to side. Our neck holds our head, our thoughts, our brain. Can sometimes be carrying a lot tension. Just noticing how the neck feels and encouraging relaxation of your neck, your jaw, your mouth. Neck, jaw, and mouth is relaxed. Bringing your awareness to your face, the cheeks, eyebrows, nose. Just noticing how all the tiny muscles in the face are feeling. Relax. Remembering the breath. How is it feeling? Just noticing. Bringing awareness to your thoughts. Now is the time to let them go, watching them as they dissipate away. Saying to yourself, I'm relaxing my mind. My mind is completely relaxed. We'll take a couple more breaths here. Bringing yourself back in to the room, back into the webinar space. You can slowly flutter your eyes open, taking a look around your environment and returning back to the group. So I'm curious to know, what did you notice in your body during this exercise? Did anything surprise you about this? Toes and face tingling. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see maybe what we kind of don't notice when we're kind of bustling through our day. I find that for me too with my toes, not so much my face, but after a long day, especially in the heat, right? It can be nice to kind of put my feet up on some pillows at the end of the day. Needed to move to another chair. Okay, so noticing maybe it's not as comfortable, or needing to be more comfortable. Small aches dissipating. Okay, so when we bring our awareness to our body, we can notice a lot of small things that aren't necessarily in the forefront when we're moving through the busyness of our day. Tightness in neck, small aches dissipating. Okay. So the last practical exercise, we're actually not going to do it today in our webinar. It's more of kind of like a homework for you to practice maybe today, this afternoon, or later on this week. And this is mindful walking. So this involves bringing awareness to each step as you move, noticing the sensations of your feet touching the ground and the movement of your body. This practice can be particularly beneficial for grounding and centering oneself in the present moment within nature, but you can also do it if you're going for a walk kind of in your neighborhood or in the city. Especially with the nicer weather we've been having, this is a great practice to not only be connected to the internal sensations within your body, but also the external environment. Okay, so we're going to look at some other ways to incorporate mindfulness into daily life. So first is mindful eating. So this involves bringing full attention to the sensory experience of eating, including the taste, the texture, and the aroma of food. So by slowing down and savoring each bite and eating without distractions, we can cultivate a healthier relationship with food and a deeper appreciation for nourishment. Next is mindful communication. So this involves listening with full attention and speaking with intention and empathy. So often when we're conversing with others, our mind might be racing and thinking about like the point we want to make or what we are going to say next, right? So we can practice mindfulness in our communication and really just sit with the person and really take in what they're saying and being fully present. And this can really enhance the quality of our relationships and our communication with others. And then finally, mindful movement. So practices such as yoga or Tai Chi, or even just some simple stretching can really help us to connect with our bodies and cultivate a sense of ease and vitality within the body. These practices can also really promote relaxation and reduce muscular tension. So are there any other ideas of how you could incorporate mindfulness into a daily activity that you're already doing? If you have any ideas, you can share it in the chat. So I have two. One is the dishes, right? So how often do we not, well, I know me personally, I don't like doing the dishes. So if I can make it into a mindfulness activity, can I like stand at the sink and really notice the water and maybe notice the soap on my hands, even smelling the soap, right? Activating your senses and really just being mindful of that activity that I'm doing, right? Another one is driving, right? So how often are we driving kind of the same route. Maybe it's our commute and you can just be on autopilot driving. So if you can incorporate some mindfulness into that driving, you might notice a lot of things on your daily commute that you wouldn't normally notice, or maybe noticing the feeling of your hands on the steering wheel, right? So there's a lot of ways that we can incorporate mindfulness in activities that we're already doing every day. So we're going to look at challenges. I know a few people brought them up at the beginning of the session. So first is dealing with distractions. So it is very natural for the mind to wander during mindfulness practice. And so when distractions arise, we want to simply acknowledge them without judgment, right? And then gently redirect your attention back to the present moment, whether it's the breath, if you're doing like a focal point of the nose or the belly, or if you're doing a body scan, kind of bringing yourself back to the sensations in the body, right? So we want to be gentle, right? Self-compassion is of the utmost importance. So notice that the mind's wandering and then gently bring yourself back. The next challenge that is pretty common is finding time for practice. So in our busy lives, finding time for mindfulness practice can be really challenging. However, even brief moments of mindfulness throughout the day can make a significant difference. So you can consider integrating mindfulness into daily activities such as showering, walking, or eating, like we spoke about in the last slide. I know for myself, I work full time. I'm a busy mom. So sometimes when life gets really busy, that's the easiest time for me to let go of my mindfulness practice, right? So I find this idea of habit stacking the mindfulness with something else that I'm already doing every day can make it a lot more manageable. And then finally, managing resistance and skepticism. So it's really common to encounter resistance or skepticism when starting a mindfulness practice. So remember that mindfulness is a skill that develops over time. Right now, the path of least resistance for you is to kind of go to that to-do list and go to all those thoughts and go to maybe judging yourself, right? That's the path of least resistance. So it's going to take some time to gently kind of corral your mind back to the present. So just be really patient and compassionate with yourself as you explore this practice. So I have a few tips here for establishing a mindfulness practice. So we want to start small. Begin by incorporating short mindfulness exercises into your daily routine, such as a few minutes of mindful breathing or a really brief body scan. You can even just focus on one part of your body to start. And as you become more comfortable with these practices, you can gradually increase the duration and the complexity, but start small. Don't say after this webinar, you're going to meditate for 20 minutes a day on a meditation cushion, because that's just kind of setting yourself up for failure. Moving on to the next point, setting realistic goals. So you want to take into account your own schedule, your own preferences, your own level of experience, and just remember that consistency is key. So we want to aim to practice mindfulness regularly, even if it's just for a few minutes or a few moments a day. And then finally, find resources and support. So explore resources such as mindfulness apps, online courses, or local meditation groups to support your mindfulness journey. You want to surround yourself with a supportive community of people that are like-minded individuals that can offer you encouragement on this path, guidance, as well as inspiration. So with that being said, I've included some books, some websites, and some apps for further guidance and support in your mindfulness practice. We will be providing these as a downloadable list when we put this webinar on the website, so look out for that. But I've listed here some apps that I've found really helpful. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. There are so many podcasts on mindfulness. These are 3 of my favorites here. And then some online resources. So there is a combination of subscription services as well as some free courses or webinars on mindfulness and establishing a mindfulness practice. You can also watch a documentary. There's a lot on Netflix. So I've listed a few there that are inspirational, that can kind of support you on this journey and give you just something else to do in the evening, maybe a break from your regular TV shows or your movies that you normally watch. And then I've included some people to follow on social media. So this whole idea is like slowing down your scroll. A lot of times we're inundated with those short videos that are like very addictive, to be honest, but they're not very intentional or mindful. So just making sure that you're unfollowing people that don't resonate and maybe trying to follow a few of these people that I've included for adding more inspiration to your social media feed. And then finally, reading a book. I've included 3 of my favorites here. And then finally, just a recap of key points. So remembering that mindfulness is a journey. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the process. And if you walk away with anything that you've learned today, it's those 3 pillars of mindfulness. So awareness, curiosity, and acceptance. Niagara North FHT.ca, you go to the programs and groups drop down and then the wellness workshop. So we've included recordings of all the wellness workshops we've done. And so that's where we'll include a downloadable little handout for all these resources that I've provided today. Yeah, I hope that you've taken something from this and you can kind of journey through the rest of your afternoon and the rest of your week, feeling very mindful and just starting to notice, right? Just noticing those thoughts, noticing those bodily sensations.